So here's a quick video on how these integrated wheel end works. Sometimes they're referred to as an IWE. This happens to be on a 2009 Ford F-150 FX4 pickup. So how these wheel ends work is they operate on vacuum. So when the engine is not running, there's no vacuum applied to this diaphragm through this port here. So this actuator actually is out, if you will, and that connects the half shaft to the wheel end. When you start the vehicle, you're going to apply vacuum. So I've got my vacuum pump supply hooked up to the port on this wheel end, and it doesn't take much to get this actuator to move. Somewhere in that 3 to 5 inches of vacuum, you can see that actuator begin to move, and it's fully engaged somewhere in that 7 to 11 inches of vacuum. Most vehicles, my Ford pickup, supplies somewhere in that 21 inches of vacuum. So you can see with 21 inches of vacuum applied, the actuator is fully pulled in, if you will, and this would be your two-wheel mode. So start the engine, vacuum is applied, it withdraws, it disconnects the half shaft from the wheel end. This is your two-wheel mode. When you go to four-wheel drive, you move the switch to four-wheel high or low, the solenoid gets energized, and the vacuum is released into the atmosphere, if you will, and of course the actuator now connects the half shaft to the wheel end and four-wheel drive is engaged. So a lot of guys don't understand how these work, but again, you have to apply vacuum, and it has to be somewhere in that 5 to 7 psi to get this thing to work. And again, like I said, they're fully engaged at about that 19 to 20 inches of vacuum. Now that's a good actuator, and that's how they should work. You can bench test these real easy. The reason I'm replacing this is because this is the one I took off the truck, and this one does not work. So I apply that same vacuum to this actuator, and it doesn't move. Matter of fact, it doesn't move at all, so that's why this is kind of stuck in that four-wheel drive mode with this actuator. So what happens is this diaphragm gets a hole in it or water in it, and they freeze and they crack, or they get full of rust and debris, and then this actuator doesn't want to move freely. So sometimes it's actually half engaged, and you can see that these teeth are starting to get worn pretty good, and what happens is they kind of rattle on the wheel ends, and if you don't catch these in time, then these wheel ends will actually start to wear out as well, and you can see the gear on this wheel end. So what happens is the actuator rattles around on this wheel end, and they start to buzz or make a noise, and you know, the actuator has failed, obviously due to vacuum. And then these wheel ends kind of get bad. So that's why I'm replacing the actuator and the wheel end. Now this is what an old wheel end looks like. And here's the wheel end that I'm going to replace. Nice fresh gears. Brand new. Of course this actuator will go on here. And this will all be a nice mechanism here, so you can kind of see how this is going to kind of pull itself in when you pull vacuum. So these actuators you can get Napa online. I happen to get this from Tasca.com. There's the part number for this. They're not too difficult to install. With the right tools, you can probably do this in less than a couple hours. But again, before you replace these components, make sure that you check vacuum at each wheel end. Because sometimes vacuum lines, you know, they'll have leaks, and of course you won't be able to apply a vacuum to this actuator, and of course the actuator itself won't pull in, and then you know you suspect that the actuator is bad when in fact it's a vacuum source. So be sure you check your vacuum. Again, 17 to 20 is what I measured on most Ford pickup trucks. And that's pretty much about it. So I hope it helps you out. At least now you understand how these vacuum actuator ends work.